Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Global Missions Podcast. My name is Mags, and I'll be your host for this episode. Just before we get to our interview with Jeannie, we'd like to invite you to subscribe to this podcast. Of course, you can find us on your favorite audio platform, and we'd also like you to consider YouTube with us. Most of our episodes now include video content, and it's just a different way of getting to know our guests and to participate in the conversation. So we invite you to consider that as well. You can find us on Instagram and, of course, on the homepage of the Global Missions Toolbox. In the upper right corner, you'll find the podcast tab, and that will lead you to show notes as well as our search engine, which allows you to look through all the episodes in case you're looking for a particular topic. This will be our fourth and final episode in this short summer mini-series on short-term missions. We've appreciated the previous guests in lifting different ideas about evangelism, about youth being involved, and Jeannie kind of gels it all together today with this episode. And whether you're planning to go on a short-term mission, you're supporting someone who's going, or you're even just thinking about it, we hope this will be a really helpful episode. Jeannie aligns with our vision to bring long-term fruit out of short-term missions. We've entitled this episode, Building a Church-Wide Vision for Short-Term Missions. Well, hello, friends, and welcome to this episode of the Global Missions Podcast. And I'm glad to say hello again to a friend of this program. Jeannie, it's nice to see you again.
It is wonderful to be here.
Jeannie is a friend of the podcast, so to speak, as she has done 2 episodes with us previously. And I'm going to say it was 148, entitled 4 Ways to Increase Your Missions Intelligence, and 189, What Kind of Global Goer Are You? And we will include links to those in the show notes in case you'd like to listen back to those particular episodes. Jeannie grew up overseas, serves and has served internationals in the United States, and moved with her family to an unreached people group in India. She's an author. We'll refer to some things from her book, Across the Street and Around the World. And she's founded a new training course, Neighbors and Nations. She'll speak a little bit about that in our episode here. She's a global strategist. She's an adventurous mother. You're a busy lady, Jeannie.
I know. 4 kids.
Right? We are going to talk today about short-term missions. This is the 4th and final episode in our mini-series this summer on short-term missions. And Jeannie has participated, led, or sent over 50 short-term mission groups. That is incredible, Jeannie.
Even though I'm a long-term girl, I use short-term trips very intentionally for a long-term purpose.
It's really good. And that fits so well, of course, with us here on the podcast, believing that short-term missions can lead to long-term fruit. And Jeannie, welcome back to the Global Missions Podcast.
Thank you so much.
For those that may have not been in on the other episodes, would you just give us a quick sketch, just a couple of minutes, your history in missions, and particularly how it connects to your heart for short-term missions?
Well, as you said, I grew up overseas in the Philippines, and I took my first short-term trip when I was 16 years old, spending a summer on an island in the Philippines, serving a long-term team that was there. So even though I grew up in that country, this trip connected my heart with my mind. And I remember hiking to the top of a mountain to a village where we ate on banana leaves and our showers were under waterfalls. We drank black coffee straight from the beans of the tree, But I also, on that trip, I really understood for the first time that these tribal people would never hear the good news unless somebody moved there long term to learn the language, love them, share Christ with them. So since then, I've come back to the States. I got married. I'm working with internationals, and I just have used a lot of short-term trips to lead to long-term work. As I grew in understanding of how to use short-term trips strategically, I learned to always connect them to a wider purpose, a longer-term outcome. We use them to move overseas, survey trips and things. And so, I now am just mobilizing and also sending people long-term. So I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And uh, some of that material that you have prepared has been helpful along the way. We know you talk about different types of trips, vision trips, professional trips. This is in some of Jeannie's writings. Um, Language is important, and you think it's really important how we name a trip. Why is it important that we get that straight at the outset?
Oh, names matter so much what we call our mission trips. So when we call everything a mission trip, we confuse people into thinking that they can do in 10 days, what it might take 10 years to do, right? Expectations are high. It's often not met for people who hope to do things. They promise supporters things. So, for example, like youth trips to inner city LA in the US, for example, they're not mission trips. They're not cross cultural. They're service trips. You're picking up trash, you're painting something, helping someone. So for me, there's strategic reasons, strategic ways, strategic places to take overseas trips, and understanding that what I've found is they fall into three main categories: vision trips, professional trips, and survey trips. All three of those trips have different goals, expectations. When we know what type of trip we're taking, we can reduce confusion, we spend money more wisely, we have correct expectations, and our effectiveness goes up. So, do you want to know a little bit more about those three trips?
Just real quick, why don't we do those three?
Okay. Yes. So vision trips are you are going to experience what God is doing in that place and people. And it's mainly you're going for yourself. You're going to see that is what the majority of quote unquote mission trips are actually our vision trips. We're going to catch a vision for the area and ask God, what are you doing there? And then there's another level of trip is a professional trip. And that's where you have a gift or a profession or something that you can go and do something to help a long-term worker. Maybe you're a business person and you can consult with their business. Often we try to mix those. We try to say, oh, we're doing something important so we can convince our supporters, right? When really we're just doing a vision trip, or make it a professional trip. And then my third one is the one I mainly am doing now is survey trips, where we're landing in completely unreached, maybe unengaged people groups. And we're actually figuring out how can someone come, what is going to take to engage this people group. And so we're doing on the ground research.
It's super. When you do those survey trips, how does that connect back either to a local church that you're part of or other agencies? Just, I'm curious what that looks like. In our agency, we do survey trips, but it's already connected with colleagues we know. How does that work for you?
Yes. So for me, I'm actually a strategist for our international organization, and we're looking at peoples and places where there are no teams. So when I'm doing a survey trip, we've already identified peoples and places, and churches can do this too, that don't currently have kingdom work there. And so then I'm just going and landing, and I'm finding my own way. I usually bring someone who obviously speaks the language and also usually a media person. And I'm a journalist, strategist kind of person. So I'm asking questions. Yeah. So it's usually tied. And we did this with church too. So if you know you want to reach a people group, you can go survey if you want to send someone there long term.
Well, it's super. And I also appreciate it aligns with another value or emphasis we try and raise through this program is awareness of frontier people groups and unreached people groups where there is little or no known expression of the gospel there, and establishing initial platforms there and learning and listening. Where is God at work? Where are there opportunities? So it's just very much aligned with what we're seeking to raise awareness on too. So
that's right. I mean, I'm all about frontier people groups, and the last few survey trips that I've gone on are frontier people groups without workers. Yeah. But I wanted to bring up one more thing in this area of trip names, and also just a gentle caution I'm always talking about with trips is often, whether it's a survey trip or a vision trip or a professional trip, we often confuse poverty alleviation goals with these mission trips, right? Often we're sending people on vision trips to places and peoples that are not developed and have poverty issues. And so just a little caution that when we know we're going to those places, if it's a vision trip, let's let's help people understand poverty alleviation rather than making them believe that they're going to actually do anything about it. Help them understand it so that they could actually affect poverty in that area later.
That's really good. Really good clarification. Well, there's just a slight cautionary tone there. It might come out in this next question too. You've used a term. I smiled when I saw it. You said it's possible for someone to be a mission trip junkie. What do you mean by a mission trip junkie? And looking at it from the positive side, whatever energy and enthusiasm is there, how do we wisely engage that energy?
Yeah, I love it when people love going on their short-term trips, right? They're exciting. It's a high. You're with a team, you're having a purpose, you get to eat cool foods, and a lot of churches are really focused on getting people to go on trips without understanding that actually people are going to want to go on another one just because it was really fun and life-changing and perspective-changing. And so whenever people come back and they just want to go on another vision trip and they haven't taken any steps in between to actually maybe welcome people, internationals, right where they're at, or maybe they could go on a long-term thing, I affirm their enthusiasm. So churches, I would say, man, grab these trip junkies and let's make them into trip leaders. Let's ask them to up level their commitment. So if they're going to go again on a trip that they've already been on, or a type of trip they've already been on, let's disciple them into leading their own trip. Or maybe they're natural mobilizers, or encourage them to make some friends, international friends, right where they're at, or consider going long-term. Or try a different trip type. So we can be intentional as leaders in helping these trip junkies be more strategic.
That's really good. And I'm so glad that it's a positive view on that energy too. How do we engage that and mold it and shape it forward and honor the good intentions that are woven through all of that? Now, growing people into leadership is one part of it. Let's zoom back a little bit and just talk about the strategy, the overall intention of a local church. How do you encourage churches to set their broad strategy when they think about short-term missions?
I say people go where they know. And so your short-term strategy should start with your long-term strategy. What is your church hoping to accomplish in the world, especially in unreached people groups or frontier people groups? And your church can have a significant impact. So don't start with the short-term trip. Start with your long-term vision. So, for example, our church, when I was working at a church as the global purpose leader, we chose that we wanted to go to we wanted to send long-term church-based teams to unreached, unengaged Muslim areas. That is pretty specific. So we're not going to go to Mexico for our short-term trip, right? Because that's not going to lead to this vision that we want. And so then we started doing, first we're like, okay, well, we need to go to Muslim countries then, right? And so we chose Morocco for our first one because we're like, none of us have been to a Muslim country. And we're like, where is the place where we might not get killed? And we're like, Casablanca, Morocco. And they came back, people loved us. They invited us for tea. And then we up-leveled it to a trip to Turkey to visit long-term workers to see what it was like. And then we went to Algeria to the camps where there wasn't any work, and then eventually sent a long-term team to India. So we want our church vision for global engagement to match the short-term trips.
I wonder if I could ask, just to dig a little deeper here, because some churches will have long-term workers and that might click right away. Okay, we support long-term workers in a particular context. And how could these short-term teams complement, enhance, bless, and fit, whichever the three types of trips it might be? Probably not a survey trip if there's long-term workers, but it could be aligned there. If you can imagine a church that says, this makes a lot of sense, but we don't have a real good connection with long-term workers, what would you suggest that church does as next steps?
Yeah, I would say go on a Joshua project, do some praying, choose some people groups that God puts on your heart, or connect with a long-term mission agency and ask them, hey, we want to start whetting our people's appetite, right? You don't need to just choose 2 or 3 people groups and you're that's all you're doing, but choose a people block, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, and then and then connect with somebody like me or somebody overseas, then and say, we want to plan this vision trip. And you can connect with long-term workers. I like to help people plan vision trips on their own, where maybe you're just having dinner with a long-term worker, but you're actually planning the trip yourself. And so we can do that nowadays. It's not that hard to travel, right? And so I even help families go overseas, so on purposeful trips. And so churches can plan their own vision trips to different places. And I have different tools to help them do that.
Right. So we will talk about tools some more on this episode. We'll come to that too. Jeannie mentioned that she would be open to help. I also want to offer the team at the Global Missions Toolbox, or the podcast here, by reaching back to us. You don't need to worry about obligation, but if we can help make some connections and get you started in the right direction with some folks that you can trust and learn from, then we would be glad to be that resource as well. So keep that in mind. If you're at the learning point, we'd love to walk alongside with you.
Yeah, can I just add on to that? I really do believe if you choose a people block as a church, connect with a long-term mission agency, because they have vision trips that you can join, and that will help you learn more about that people block. So I just want to affirm what you just said.
All this aligns with what our audience is used to hearing, Jeannie, of course. And I was on Jeannie's website earlier today, actually, and came across an expression that just resonated, and you used it in your opening a little bit. She is a let's go live overseas long-term kind of gal, which we really believe in, long-term overseas, right? And that short-term really can have a high yield, a high return on long-term. It can have long-term fruit, is the way we say it. When you talk with churches about leaning into that and structuring their trips within the broader concept of discipleship, how do you fit those pieces together? Short-term, long-term?
Yes. So people are very excited to go on a short-term trip, right? Especially if it's another country. Let's capitalize on the fact that we have their attention for 2 full weeks, but let's tell them that it is a 6-month trip, not a 2-week trip. And let's tell them that in order to go on this trip, we're going to give you some training that you need to come like once a month or something. And so we're looking at it as a discipleship experience for these people to grow them in God's heart for the nations, but even as people holistically and as disciple makers. And so we can use the short-term trip as an excuse, as a reason to disciple the 12 people that we have in our hands. And so an example of that is, I have the Neighbors and Nations course, which it's a pretty deep course that I developed because I saw people going overseas that didn't know how to share their faith, moving long-term or short-term. And recently I created it so that short-term teams could use it for their training. You just show up, once a month on Sunday afternoons, and you can go through some of the training together. I have a whole facilitator's guide and all that kind of stuff. You can use the training on the trip and post-trip, but all of the training will help them to experience the trip in a way that they'll be able to figure out what is their role in reaching the nations. And they're not going to mess up the culture over there in their 2 weeks and their enthusiasm. And boy, you get to pour into them in a very intentional way.
Right. We have found great resonance in local churches when they realize the opportunity that it is more than just the 2 weeks, and it actually is really building into the fabric of the discipleship program or intentions of a local church. It's not just that 2 weeks that people get excited about. You mentioned it before. This is part of your full long-term journey of walking with God in obedience and learning about His world. You've got your book Across the Street and Around the World, and you just mentioned the course. It's entitled, there it is, Neighbors and Nations. How long would it take someone typically to go through your course if they registered for it? How long is it going to take?
Yeah, you can sign up individually anytime or as a family, and you can do an 8-week plan where you're doing like 3 to 4 hours a week going through it, or a 6 month where it's just 1 hour a week and you get to practice the things to put into place. And then the short term trip version is like a group package where you would show the videos once a month for about a 3 hour meeting for 6 months and then 2 months after. So there's different ways to experience it. It's a digital course, so you can watch it and do it anytime at your own leisure, and it's lifetime access. So yeah, I want to make it accessible.
And we appreciate that you've made it scalable so it fits different contexts, different timelines, so that it can be flexible to serve in many different churches. So it's a resource that you can consider for your church. We know, Jeannie, that really you're about much more than just the people who are going on this trip. You mentioned 12, for example, might be a team. It could be smaller or larger than that. But really, you're after something else here. You're looking to mobilize the whole church. Just unpack that a little for us. What are you up to here?
Absolutely. It is not just about the 12 people on a 2-week trip. Your church has this opportunity to get the whole church excited about sending their sons and daughters and mothers and fathers overseas, right? So when I was working at church, I've done this quite a few times at different churches, and other people have used my global challenges. So this is just an example of getting the whole church involved. So we decided to send I mentioned Algeria. We decided to send a 2-week trip to the Sahrawi refugees in the middle of the desert, right? And so we invited our entire church to do what I call the Global Refugee Rations Challenge. And we asked them to, during the time that our short-term trip people were gone, that they would only eat what refugees a ration would be, like rice and beans. And, I have a whole game board, and family and life groups could have recipes, and we had prayer things. And then we had the church actually Zoom in on a Sunday morning live to say, hey, here we are. This is what we're experiencing. So we want everyone to grab God's heart for the nations. And the trip is just a reason to do this. And it's exciting and it's live. And why not make it where there's something challenging that the whole church could do? So yeah, I have 3 challenges that I've developed. Discover by Doing. These are just free on my website. And Discover by Doing. And then there's a Prayer Pathways one. And you can develop your own. Like, you can tie something related to the group that you're going to serve.
That's it. Well, this is just a taste of some of the resources. You can hear the creativity coming out of Jeannie's work here, which we love. I really appreciate how this is inviting the senders, those people that probably aren't going to get on the airplane and go anywhere. They may have been donors, they may be prayer warriors. And can I just pause to say thank you so much for supporting short-term missions and for praying for short-term missions. It's just another level of engagement to involve everyone. And I just love the ideas. I love that you mentioned life groups at our church. We're going to hear some more about this, these global challenges, Jeannie. So we're going to continue in just a moment with Jeannie. We want to hear a little bit more about some of the tools that she has available and some of the advice that she has for us in local churches. Just before we do that, we want to share with you this global resource.
As this is the last episode of our mini-series on short-term missions, we wanted to take this final opportunity to talk to you about the GoJournal. We know you've heard us mention it before, and that's because we really believe in it. If you're preparing for a short-term mission trip, the GoJournal is designed to walk with you through the whole journey, before, during, and after. Whether you're a team member, a leader, or a mentor, there's a version of the GoJournal made just for you, with space for reflection, practical tools, and questions that spark real growth. It's more than just a journal. It's a way to help the impact of short-term missions transform into long-term fruit. If you haven't already, we encourage you to check it out today at gojournal.org.
We are back again with Jeannie Marie, who is author of the book across the street and around the world, and an online course creator. We've talked about neighbors and nations. All that will be in the show notes. And as far as resources and tools go, Jeannie, let's go there again. And if there's anything else that you might like to mention, might be helpful to local churches who want to do a great job of short-term missions.
Yeah, well, I've often seen that churches really want to do this. They understand this, and then they're like, "Well, how do I know who to go to and who to serve and how to make this a long-term vision?" So I created a tool, actually, that a group, just people who care about this, or maybe it's your global committee or your family, it's called Plan Your Short-Term Trip in a Day. And so I'm going to walk you through a framework where you ask the right questions about who, how, why, when, where. And in a day, you set aside a day, 6 hours with this team. By the end, you should know why you're going, who you're serving, where you're going, what your trip type and purpose is, how it fits into your long-term vision. And you can start all the work of recruiting and going on this trip. So that's just a simple tool that it's just launching with this podcast. So this is a new thing I'm trying.
Very good. Well, we'll make sure it's in the show notes. And again, that planning phase, building the expectation, and even I'll use the big word missiologically, going wisely, going intentionally, laying all those foundations in a healthy way at the beginning. Of course, you're not done all the work in a day, right?
No, this is just making sure you're intentional.
Exactly. And you're pointed in the right direction with clarity, which is going to inform the whole road forward, of course, as well. So, we said we'll include links to that in the show notes as well. Jeannie, I like to ask some pretty familiar questions toward the end of each episode, and I want to actually break this question into 2 parts for you today. I like to ask our guests to imagine themselves before a church that really wants to do a good job of missions, in this case, specifically short-term missions. Maybe the missions committee is present there and the pastor is present there. In this case, I'd like to ask you, what would you like to say to the goers? As we record this, it's the summertime of 2025, and it could be that within short weeks, maybe, or even days, some of these people are going to get on an airplane. What would you like to say to that group?
To the goers, when you land, in every moment of your trip, I want you to listen to the Spirit of God and ask Him, God, how do you see these people? How do you see this people group? What are you doing here? And what do you want me to know about my involvement with this group or beyond or back home? So always be listening, asking God, how do you see these people? And also, what is my role? What do you want me to do about it later? And so just really putting in some time for reflection. And then I would also say, if you get a chance to meet with long-term workers or meet with kingdom businesses, ask questions, go to learn. No matter what trip you're on, you're asking questions, you're learning. You don't know the language, you don't know the culture. So go to learn, look at it as a pivotal time to see how this fits into God's vision for your life and for people who might never hear.
So those are the goers. Those are the folks who are preparing to get on an airplane or maybe a train, or it depends, of course, on the location of what we're doing. Those are the goers. And then there are the senders that we're so thankful for. We mentioned them before. They may be giving financially to make it possible. They will be praying. What would you like to say to that group of the church?
Thank you, first of all. Thank you for championing a lot of these people that want to be willing to go on short-term trip that lead to long-term vision. And also, your role is not static. So praying and giving, that is a discipline that we do as world believers. We're all praying and giving, right? So as you send these people overseas, pray for them, and not just, oh Lord, keep them safe, but listen as well and ask God the same things that the goers are asking. Ask God, what are you doing in this people group? What are you doing in this person that I helped to send? And go ahead and send. And praying often leads to action. So when you're praying and you're listening and you're praying scripture over them, send them a note, send them something. This is what God revealed to me. So you can be part of their experience by actively praying. And of course, if you're sending them, you're usually supporting them financially as well. And so thank you for that again. And so keep praying, and praying that can lead to action, that where you're involved with this person. And when the person comes back that you've supported financially, boy, take them out to coffee, and don't just ask them, how was your trip? And don't just give them 2 minutes. Give them an hour, give them 2 hours, unpack it, disciple them. You have a huge role in championing this person's future.
So good. Thank you for honoring the senders. And Jeannie didn't know this, but it led me just to jot down a couple of resources I will mention. The producer of our podcast, Maggie, has prepared 2 resources that fit exactly with what Jeannie just mentioned. The first is, have you put together a prayer team for your short-term trip? I hope you have, but if you haven't got that all together yet, or you realize, that could use some more energy, there's a downloadable resource. It'll be in the show notes. How to go from we're going on a trip to building out and informing people so that they can pray actively. Great resource for that. The other is, after you're home, we've got a list of our coaches' 12 favorite questions to ask after someone returns from a short-term mission. It's a download you can use by yourself with your Bible and your journal, or you can use it in a team environment as well. We'll make sure that, Maggie, please include those in the show notes. Jeannie, you've just offered a whole wealth of different resources. Thank you so much for leaning into this and generously sharing your wisdom with others. If people want to follow up and learn from you, where's the best place to go?
Probably my website, JeannieMarieAcademy.com. That's Jeannie with 2 N's and an I, JeannieMarieAcademy.com. Or I'm on Instagram at Jeannie M. Marie. So with 2 N's and an I and 2 M's. Jeannie Marie.
Okay. And we will make sure that all of that is in the show notes as well. If you're in the car or you're not able to see it right away, don't worry. You can go to globalmissionstoolbox.com, and then up in the upper right corner, there's the podcast tab. And from there, you can make your way to the show notes and find all of this with easy links. Jeannie, thank you so much for, again, joining us here, being part of the community. We really appreciate you being part of the Global Missions Podcast.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity.
Well, friends, that's a wrap on our mini-series on short-term missions. We hope that you've been encouraged and reminded of some healthy ways that we can cultivate long-term fruit from short-term ministry activities. We also want to say thank you to those of you who are praying for short-term missions this summer. You may have donated to make it possible. Thank you for supporting the advance of God's work in this way. We pray that it will bring great, beautiful fruit that is lasting. We will be putting out conversations over the summer and encore episodes, and already our team is recording new episodes for September. New guests, some veteran guests, new topics, ready to go after Labor Day. We invite you to subscribe so you don't miss any of that on your audio platform or YouTube or Instagram. And of course, you can find us on the Global Missions Toolbox website. This podcast is produced by the Global Missions Toolbox, and we invite you to check out the resources that have been assembled there. And we invite you to join us again in 2 weeks for another episode when we'll continue to explore the grand adventure of being Christ's witnesses to the ends of the earth.